Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome to another day of our Wellness is Your Birthright conversation. We are live and direct. It is a beautiful Sunday, depending where you are. It might be a little bit gloomy, it might be shiny. Either way, it's a beautiful day, and so it is. I wanted to share something unique, but we're going to switch it up a bit. So the first thing I wanted to share is around the importance of meditation and being centered and supporting the nervous system. So I'm going to bring on a guest. I believe we're going to have him on, not next week, I think the week after. But as I'm speaking with him, reflecting on my week, I decided that there's something else I wanted to discuss before we get to that step. So welcome to Wellness is Your Birthright. This week's conversation is your word is your magical wand, and the power of your tongue, your word, the power of vibration, the power of sound. So that's where we're going to start today. And this came about, I was at a business networking event earlier this week. And what happened was the lady's like, "What do you do?" And I explained to her what I do. And, and it was a beautiful conversation. And we were talking about speaking to your body, healing your body, speaking to your circumstances, speaking to the situations in your life. And she brought up the book, Your Body Keeps Score. I believe that's what it's called, Your Body Keeps Score, or something of that nature. We were just talking about how powerful our thoughts are and our words. Then later on in the week, yesterday, I was asked a few questions in a beautiful interview. And one of the questions was, what are your most favorite quotes? And that's where I'm going to start. So I have many, favorite quotes. But the one that stuck out in that moment and still in this moment is that if there's no enemy within, it's an African proverb. So it's not really a quote, it's an African proverb that states, if there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do us no harm. If there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do us no harm. So what does that even mean if we were to break that down? So that's what I wanted to discuss today. The enemy within is my own thoughts, my own consciousness, my own feelings, my own emotions. If those are self-destructing, filled with self-hate and disappointment and self-judgment and judgment, I'm creating an internal enemy. And if I create an internal enemy, as above, so below, as within, so without. So within me, I'm going to experience that. Guess what I'm going to experience without me? The enemy without. So people, circumstances, events, workplace, Tim Hortons. If you still go to Starbucks or wherever you go, you're going to experience the thought vibration that you're having. And I kept thinking about this. If there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do us no harm. And I said, so if I just have positive thoughts, then I'm going to experience a positive situation. Because right now, with the war, with everything going on, I don't know, like I'm having positive thoughts. But it's not only that, it's the words, sound vibration. The words carry sound. So we have to have the thoughts, the thoughts and the feeling. And in that feeling, we need to take an action, which is the spoken word. And how does this spoken word lead to the outcome desired? Yeah. So I grew up in church, and prayer was like a big thing, right? We pray. And I always considered myself what they say is a prayer warrior, right? now I realize, especially understanding energy, that my sound vibration changes the molecular structure of an atom cell tissue, which impacts my organs, which impacts my organ system, and then my body, and then my body impacts the people around me, my environment, my village, and then that village impacts the global world. So my spoken word has a global effect. Yeah. So I thought about this, I sat with this, and I realized that there are sections of my life that the spoken word wasn't as high vibrational as I thought it should be, right? And sometimes we just need to take inventory. And if anybody knows, I'm pretty much a transparent person. And I had to take inventory of certain areas of my life, and how am I speaking to circumstances, how am I speaking to events, how am I speaking to myself, even if it's inner, because my inner thoughts carry electricity. We are electrical beings, we are energetic beings, and our thoughts alone can be felt in our bodies and outwards. And another conversation I had, so this is all this week. So that's why I said, let's have this conversation about wellness, particularly around our words. And then we're going to enter some other mindfulness stuff, not with me, but not me teaching it. I'm going to have somebody that I've been having beautiful conversations with the last couple of weeks about mindfulness and the nervous system and things like that. But even before we get to calming our nervous system, calming our whole hormonal system, our adrenal glands and things like that, we have to learn how to speak the word. And what words do we speak, and how do we speak, and with what energy and with what thought process? Because if I'm praying, affirming, or speaking to something or someone with the mind of fear, that is the energy that's going to be bestowed on that situation, right? So we have to have, or I realize, let me use the word I realize that having a mind of love, of power, of courage, of being curious is detrimental to the outcome. I've experienced speaking positive things and still receiving the opposite effects. And those opposite effects were not the lessons, they were a manifestation. And when I told myself the truth of actually what I'm thinking and feeling, it wasn't aligned with the words I was saying. So there has to be an alignment with the words I'm thinking and the words I'm saying to speak to the situation. So what is the dialogue? So there's a couple of things I wanted to share about the power of the spoken word. And I this is something I've practiced like heavily in my life. Whether it's books, whether it's group meditations, whether it's conferences, workshops, retreats, my own moments of silence, my own moments of fasting, whatever I had to do to get into a space, a meditative space, so that I could have the clear words and the clarity. So it led me to this book, and I love reading. I haven't read a lot since December, January. I read a little bit, but I'm learning about the embodiment. I'm kind of at this implementation, embodiment, integration period of my life. So I'll stick to some of the groups and the courses right now where the learning is integrative learning. But anyways, not to digress. So this is kind of where I got the title from. Your Word is Your Wand by Florence Scovel Shinn. And she also has a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. And I've read this book, all these books, many times. I have like 2 versions of this book. But what I wanted to address, and she has various topics about how to use your word, whether it's in prosperity, success, faith, loss, debt, love, marriage, forgiveness. And one thing I really took from this is, behold, I make all things new. Behold, so I'm saying this to myself. So let me share what I do for my wellness. Oh, uh-oh. Okay, so the sound was probably really low. Let me just double check here. The sound was probably low because I'm just realized my headset was plugged in. So the sound was probably low, but it's still there. So that's okay. So your word is your magical wand, right? And one of the phrases that really stuck out to me, if I'm speaking to situations, if I'm speaking to circumstances, if I'm calling from the unseen to be seen in my life, this is the framework that I use, that I was taught to use, that I know many people use. And one of the main processes that I use is I look myself in the mirror. So it's a little bit of mirror work. Then I look myself straight in the eye, in the black pupil, and I speak whatever I need to speak. So I have, little stickies, on my mirror, and I read whatever affirmations I'm doing for that week, for that month, or whatever, to speak to the situation, because words carry vibration. Words create life. It brings life and death to all situations. Yeah. So behold, I make all things new. This is very, very simple. Very, very simple. But when I look at the original African proverb, if there's no enemy within, the enemy without can do me no harm. Why is that? How is that? That's because I make all things new. And when I speak to a situation, when I use my spoken word, when I think about a situation and I'm speaking about it internally or externally, I go back to the situation or the person or the event or the family member or the family function or the friendship or the relationship or the workplace. I go back to the same thing. So the people haven't changed, but my way of thinking, it has. Then that now introduced a different experience. I've manifested the experience that I was having, manifested a different experience. Why? Because I know I can make all things new. Now, for me, what was really important is to get to a place of groundedness, calmness. I have a lot of energy. As you can say, I have a lot of energy and I can go and speak and do and have and all these things. So I know as a little girl, I've always had a bubbly personality. I've always had a lot of energy. So that is something that it's a blessing, and not so much of a blessing depending on the situation. What I do know to be true for me is no matter how powerful my words are, my prayers are, or I am, I had to be in a place of receiving the insights, receiving the miracles, receiving the wisdom. And in order to do that, I had to be calm, still, and silent. And so that's why we're going to have one of the conversations. I bring people on that I'm having conversations in the week or daily or weekly or daily, just my regular comrades, friends, family, friends. And then as we grow and we do our full launch, we will bring really some elders, ancient wisdom keepers, some priests, priestesses, some real people. And hopefully by then we'll be having the show in person so that we can have a live audience to do live demonstration of energy shifts. Yeah. For now, we're going to continue the conversation of wellness because it is our birthright to be well. It is our birthright to remain well. It is our birthright to speak wellness in our life. It is our birthright to speak wellness into ourselves, into our bodies, into our situations. And sometimes that's not easy when the world is harsh. We live in a harsh world. Not everybody's harsh. But, as we can see, the world is having a harsh transition, right? Mama Earth is going through a harsh transition in its people. And so I wanted to share a couple more words that supported me as I continue to speak wellness in my life. So one of the phrases I also use is, let me go to I do not resist this situation. I put it in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. Let the divine idea come to pass right now. And I say this in the mirror. As I look in the mirror, I say, it is so, so it is, ashe. And that ashe seals it and carries it. So ashe is a very, very powerful phrase. And so it is, and it is so. So I conclude what I'm saying. So just like we put a period when we're writing, when we're speaking energy into the universe, we got to seal it and confirm it and end it so it's complete, so that it goes out into the ethers to do what it needs to do. So I do not resist this situation, the war that's happening in the world, whether the war within our countries, within our families, or the war that's happening in between the States and Iran and Israel. I do not resist the situation. So there's a surrenderness so that we could be open to the miracles, to the insights on what to do, how to do it, when to do it, who to do it with. I put it in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. Let the divine idea come to pass. So these are some of the quotes that I use. These are some of the words that I use. I wasn't going to have a long stream today. Today's a shorter stream because I made some switches. I said, let's just have a quick conversation around the word and how the word carries energy. There's a study with Dr. Emoto. And Dr. Emoto did a study where he spoke to water. It's a water experience. And he had jars like this of water. And one jar, he said, I love you, I love you, I love you. The other ones, I hate you, I hate you. And the other jar he ignored. Then he took water samples from the jar onto a petri dish, froze it, and looked at the molecular structure of the water. So there's plain water. And he knows what the plain water looks like before you spoke anything to the water. And in this experiment, the waters that were spoken, love, kindness, joy, peace, the water that experienced some of that words and intentions, they were beautiful crystals, very, very beautiful snowflake kind of crystals. And the shape was beautiful, like almost like handmade, beautiful jewelry. And when they looked at the frozen petri dish of the water that was spoken hate, it was shattered and broken up. And it didn't look that pretty. It looked distorted. It looked angry. It looked disconnected. It looked isolated. It looked alone. It looked like it wasn't contributing to life, like it was on its way out. And I'm just putting my own words to this experiment observation. There's a book. You can YouTube it. This is not something I made up. Then you look at the petri dish. I believe that was ignored. And it had some flakes, but it also had some shatteredness. So he's saying if the spoken word did this to the water, and our body is 70 to 80% water, what is happening to our bodies and our cells as we speak to ourselves internally? Internal conversations carry vibration. Thoughts are electric, and they send signals to our bodies 24/7, conscious or unconscious, awake or sleep. This is why I wanted to emphasize that your word is your magical wand. As we continue to think, to speak what we want to see, call from the unseen to be seen. And when we speak into our lives, into our cells, I remember us feeling a pain at the side, and I think it was, I don't know, kidneys or something. I was just, I had too much carbs. That when I have too much carbs, I get like swollenness, right? And I know this, but I love my food. So at times I'll have too much carbs. And I said, you know what? Thank you for coming, but you gotta go. This doesn't feel good. Thank you for signaling me to reduce the carbs and stay low carb diet. I thank you for visiting me, and I thank you for giving me the signal, but it's time to go. Can I tell you, within minutes, the pain was gone. That inflamed pain was gone. And I drank some water, drank lots of water, actually, and I just stuck to my low carb diet. So this is real. This is something that I've practiced for my own wellness, is practicing the power of my word. I know the Bible says the tongue speaks life and death. When we look at other scriptures, it'll tell you that by thy words you are justified. So I believe this is probably still from a Christian text. And by thy words thou shalt be condemned. So your words are very, very powerful. It's literally a magic wand to change a situation. And sometimes we're not going to change the external situation directly, but we're going to change how we experience it and how it impacts us. I did this during COVID. I did this during the blackout way back in 2003. I did this during COVID. I spoke to the situation, and compared to my peers and even some family members, I did not experience such a negative impact as some of my coworkers, peers, family, and friends. So I know this to work for me. I'm just going to share some gems. This works for me and many people that I do know and work with. And it's something that this is quantum physics. This is alchemy at the beginning of being an alchemist, is learning how to use that energy from within. Their life force, your chi energy, your sum sum, I believe it's called, like depending where you are, to learn to use that energy field inside of you, so that it's not going to take what's happening in the world and take that as to be gospel and have that impact your life, but you now speak, and it's going to take what you were speaking, what you were feeling, to help you govern your life, to help you be a steward of your life, a steward of your affairs, to help you be a sovereign being. Yeah. So that's all for today. Let's see if I'm going to leave you with a quote. And this quote, it's from this book, Your Word is Your Wand. And it's an affirmation. There's affirmations throughout the whole book. And the book is pretty cheap. I think it's like $10. And this chapter is the chapter for protection. So I'm going to leave you with this last quote, and then I'll be out. I am surrounded by the white light of God, through which nothing negative can penetrate. I walk in the light of God, and my fear giants dwindle into nothingness. There is nothing to oppose my good. I want to encourage you to start speaking life into your life. And you are deserving of wellness. You are deserving of love. You are deserving of life. You are deserving of high vibrations. as you realize this deservingness, sorry, you also can start just with gratitude. And I give thanks for my breath. I give thanks for my smile. I give thanks for my body. I give thanks for my consciousness. I give thanks for the people around me. And I know that if there's any negativity or anything that is no longer serving for me, it will move to a place of nothingness. And so it is. And it will go to a place of nothingness, of the light, to a time and place of the light, and nothingness, and neutralized by life in your life. And it will happen quickly, gently, divinely. So it is. Ashe, ashe, asheo. Have a wonderful day. Namaste. Take care.